Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an outstanding guest with us, Prophet James Snowden. He's a former resident of North Chicago, and now he's a retired Zion School System employee. Good evening, Prophet Snowden.
Good evening, Mr. Brooks.
We're very happy, literally, that you're taking time from your busy schedule to be with us on Community Forum. And we're going to talk about a topic that we hear very little about in our community. We hear quite a bit about it from our leaders on television, more now than we ever had before. But we're going to talk about racism. Well, we call it the vision of race unity, America's most challenging issue. And we talked about this many times, that if we don't wake up America, then we're gonna just slip right into slavery again, you know? Yeah. So I want you to tell us, what is your take on vision of race unity? And why do we call it America's most challenging issue?
One of the reasons we call it one of the most America's challenging issues is because America does not want to deal with offense, rejection, and pride.
Okay.
That's one of the biggest challenges that we have as a nation and as a people. One of the greatest fears, I believe, those that want to continue on with separation and not have us get along, to live together, to get along, is because they don't want to deal with their hurts and their offenses. You see, it's not easy for a person to accept a family member that has done cruel things and done atrocious things to individual or to a people, and to accept it. And you know, it's not a blame game, and that's what I think a lot of times we fall into. We fall into the blame game where we want to blame one specific group, one specific nationality, one specific race of people. But in studying Black history, I found out that it was not only whites that had inflicted great harm and pain on Black people, but it was also Black people, it was also the Jews, it was also the Muslims, it was also Catholic people, it was also Native Americans, it was also Latino people. It was a multitude of people that participated in that behavior because of the extreme possibilities of gaining wealth and domination over a group of people to achieve financial wealth. Everybody benefited from it. And in fact, I hear a lot of people talking about reparations for Black people. It's a historian, Dr. Claude Anderson, who was one of the architects of the Civil Rights Bill, has came up with a plan to implement reparations for us that he's tried to present to several presidential candidates, several politicians, several elected officials, Black and white and other races. And I was strongly surprised to find out that Maxine Waters is the only one that really took a look at it. And the only one has been in dialogue with him about implementing this. You see, Mr. Brooks, it's no one way that we can address that issue without addressing that issue through the United Nations. Because the whole world participated and benefited in the enslavement of Blacks in America. The whole world. And what blows me away is when they talk about slavery and they talk about trans-Pacific slave trade, I'm just strongly surprised that they show me pictures of how we got here, but they could never show me a slave ship. They showed me a Viking slave ship, you know, and that was way before the time of slavery.
Okay.
They've even discovered Noah's Ark, but nobody has actually seen a slave ship. Only pictures, only drawings, only illustrations of what it might have been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, we talk about 6 million Jews that were destroyed and or killed by dictator Adolf Hitler, 6 million, but they don't talk about the 100 million slaves that were killed or died in the trip from the transatlantic trip from West Africa to the United States.
Yeah.
100 million, and they were so disgusted with their situation that they say, I would rather feed myself to the fish, big fish, rather than go through this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was no hospital, no, they were chained together on the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then, you know, I've been out in Lake Michigan.
Okay.
And I flew, and I've been on ships before.
Okay.
And it is humanly impossible for a ship to travel with that kind of cargo, people, and have crew, and travel across the Atlantic Ocean with a ship that's made out of wood, because they didn't have steel then, with a ship that's made out of clay and mud, because they had some idea what glue was, but it's humanly impossible to make that trip.
Well, what is your theory on that then?
My theory is that we were already here. I strongly believe we were already here. They say prior to the 1600s, a historian, I can't remember his name right offhand, but you can look it up. It explain it. Prior to the 1600s, blacks and whites, Native Americans, they married together.
Oh yeah, okay.
They built towns together before it was the USA, the United States of America.
Okay.
They worshiped together, and they did everything together. My thing is I'm wondering what came up with the idea that we were going to make the black people slaves. Because I know some of us, when we came over here on the good ship Jesus, and they tried to give that narrative that was the slave ship, but I actually believe that was how the Europeans landed here. I believe the good slave ship, they called the slave ship Jesus, was the slave ship Jesus. I believe that's how the Europeans, because I think Malcolm X gave us a subliminal message when he told us we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
Okay.
And I think that was a subliminal message to let us know that we were already here. Most of us were already residents of the United States.
Now, this is not a theory that blacks were here before even the Indians, thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the blacks taught the Indians, you know, everything they knew. But you don't you don't read about that in history.
Because of the destroying of the writings, literature, and stuff like that, we don't know how many Native American tribes there were.
Okay.
We know that it was no coincidence that they called one tribe the Blackfeet tribe.
Okay.
They called them Blackfeet for a reason.
Okay.
And we're not really privy to all the documentation that is sealed and locked away for us not to see. Mm-hmm. A lot of us like to make the statement that we're from Africa.
Yeah.
But Africa is a continent, and Africa has, I don't know how many nations. I think it's like 100 and something nations that we know of. I believe it's more than that. So to say that we're from Africa is to say where, what tribe, what village, what nation. You know, so a lot of us can't really say that. Us here, blacks here in America have no place to go but America, because it's all we know.
Okay.
And either we're going to have to make a decision consciously that we're going to take our citizenship, or we're going to mess around like you and I talked before, we're going to mess around and be slaves again. Because like I shared with you, the manufacturing of marijuana is like oranges. It can't be ran through a machine, it has to be picked. And like I shared with you, that's how cotton got its start, you know, picking.
Okay.
And the demand came so high that they didn't have enough people to pick, so they picked some people to pick. They said initially, when we initially came to this, a lot of the Africans that came here as indentured servants and winded up slaves. No. So it's a lot that, you know, that we have to re-educate ourselves on. We've trusted everybody to educate us on our culture, on our race. I remember as a young man, Dr. Brooks, when I was foolish, I was with an older guy that was from Africa, and we were having a conversation. And he told me, he made a statement to me. He said, "You blacks ain't very intelligent." He said, "Brother, what are you calling yourself black for? Black is a color. It's not a nation. It's not a person." And I looked at him like, you know, just as dark as I am, you know, why you don't want to be black? You know, why you denying being black? And he explained to me that I know who I am. I'm African. I know what village I'm from, what nation I'm from. And he went off from the spills. And then he said, "Y'all are not very intelligent." And I said, "Well, why are you saying that?" He said, "Well, how intelligent it is for you to allow somebody to educate your children, teach your children, who kept you in bondage for over 400 years. They're not going to teach your children anything." And we see that prevalent today. We wanted integration. The only people that got integrated was us. Nobody else got integrated. Before integration, we had stores. And I remember in North Chicago alone, we had a whole bunch of stores. We had, I think it was 2 or 3 black gas stations, was it? 2 or 3? The one on Martin Luther King, and the one on 14th Street, and I think it was another one. But we had black gas stations. We had.
I know we had about 5 chain grocery stores.
Right.
Piggly Wiggly, A&P.
Right.
What's the Kroger?
Yeah.
Kroger was on 15th and Sheridan Road, and Jewel, and so what happened? To
my point, though, is what I'm saying is we had those venues, yes, but we also had black-owned mini marts, black-owned stores, where people could go in their neighborhood and purchase from the neighborhood store in their community with people who looked like them, had the same culture that they had, basically used the same type of materials and things that we like to eat, like we like catfish, you know, chicken, those type of things. We could go to the neighborhood store and get them. We didn't have to go to the commercial store and get it. We could go to the neighborhood store. And then a lot of those stores kept a lot of families alive because they would give them what they call store credit, to where they say, "Well, I don't get paid till next week," and they say, "Well, fine, go ahead, pay me next week." But we did away with a lot of that during integration. Integration, what it did was it depleted black power. Because you were around when the Black Power movement was on. When we had black power, we had black economic power. When you took away the black power, you took away our black economic power.
Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he's known for the father of Negro History Week, but he wrote a book called The Miseducation of
Right,
the
that's
Negro.
a good book too.
You know, okay, you're familiar with that,
I'm
yeah,
familiar.
right.
That's a good book.
And that's what you were addressing.
Yeah,
The miseducation.
yeah. We have to educate. If you don't know where you come from, how you gonna know where you're going?
Okay.
That's what I've heard that my whole life. If you don't know what you can do, how you gonna know to do anything?
Okay.
See what I'm saying? I was surprised one time, Mr. Brooks. I was talking to a young lady that was running a program for teenage mothers.
Okay.
And I observed something, and I asked her a question. I said, well, is this open to the community, the whole public? Because I only see one nationality of people coming in here benefiting from these services. And I know other people give towards this because I went to one of your fundraisers. And I asked her, and you know, I'm going to be blunt with you, it was a Hispanic lady. I asked her, I said, you know, all I ever see is Spanish people come up here getting baby beds, Pampers, you know, getting provisions for taking care of a child, getting provision, housing and stuff provided for them through this agency. And I asked her, and she looked at me at attention like she couldn't believe that I asked her that, you know. But I asked because I wanted to know, because I knew some young people that could probably benefit from the service. And she replied to me, Mr. Brooks, she told me, she said, I love my people, Mr. Snowden. She said, why wouldn't I want to take care of my people first? Now that startled me.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? My people first? See what I'm saying? We're the only group of people who come up with programs and systems, and we involve everybody in the participation of reaping the spoils for it. Using the example, civil rights. I went to Washington, D.C. to visit the Afro-American Museum to only find out what everything that I told about civil rights was just a lie. And all you have to do is just read to comprehend, to understand that before it became a civil rights movement, it was just a movement. And the movement was not for civil rights, because if you're an American citizen, the Constitution said that you're born with these inalienable rights.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And the first one is civil, right?
Okay.
But I was surprised to find out that they flipped it on us and we fell for it. Because see, we already had civil rights. Our fight was for human rights, and we're still fighting for human rights today. We're still fighting for the right for employment, right for an advancement, right for housing, right for education. We're still fighting for all those things that civil rights was supposedly supposed to fix. And we're the only ones still fighting for it. The only group of people. You know, you said, you know, you've been around a long time. I've been knowing you since, you know, I could hold water.
Well, we lived on the same block,
Yeah,
I guess.
Sherman.
Sherman. And,
Yeah, we stayed on the same block. You stayed right down the street.
Well, the same street, rather.
Same street. And the beautiful thing about where I grew up at is I have no excuse for not being a man, because all up and down my block were real men. Mr. Wallace,
Okay.
you, Mr. Green, you know, all up and down my block, real men. Mr. Houston,
Okay.
you know, all up and down. And every morning I woke up, I seen you doing one thing: taking care of your family, loving your wife, going to work, not disciplining, raising your children. So I got no excuse. I can't say that I don't know what it looked like. I've never seen it, because I've seen it. I've seen it you. Like I was sharing to you before we started, I said, you're one of only men that I know that I've never throughout my life, I'm 61 now, have never heard Waddell Brooks brung up in any type of scandal.
Okay.
any type of shameful thing, anything that I would be ashamed of to say, I know Mr. Brooks. See what I'm saying? And I still address you as Mr. Brooks. I don't care how old I get. You are still Mr. Brooks because you are worthy of double honor. Because you demonstrate, you showed. Like I shared with you once before when I worked at Great Lakes Naval Base, when I was one of the first supervisors there, young boy, and I was afraid that I couldn't do the job. And you encouraged me, said, you can do it. And I did it.
So you still remember?
I still remember that.
So it's lasting impressions, you know.
Lasting impression.
And that's reading more of our men should be role models to our young men.
I tell my children, we tell my children all the time, I said one thing that I've learned is in school, you remember two things. You remember your good teacher and you remember your bad teacher. And I remember my good teacher and I remember my bad teacher. The worst teacher I ever had was a lady named Miss Carney. She nearly destroyed me. Nearly destroyed me. And the best teacher I ever had was a man by the name of Mr. Barfield. He was a great teacher, great teacher. He didn't, in the classroom, kids that were a little slower and kids were smart and kids were halfway there, he didn't divide us and make one greater than the other. He taught us to work together to help one another. And that's what I think that we have to get back to is a community of people, white and black. We got to get back to where we care about each other and take care of each other. I remember in North Chicago, it was no different than a black mother, to correct me, than one of them Polish mothers that lived in North Chicago would check you. In fact, I remember as a little boy when we stayed in Marion Jones Project, when they had a store called Piggly Wiggly, as you said. I was with some of my friends who had sticky fingers, and they talked me into stealing Hot Wheels. And I went to Hot Wheels, and it was a white man in the store that worked at the store, and he caught me stealing the Hot Wheels. He took me in the back in the office, and then he said, who's your people? Remember, they used to always say who your people is. They identify you with who your people is. And he said, I know this boy's people. He told the manager of the store, he told him, he said, I got this. I know his people. I'll take care of this. The man took me in the washroom, spanked my butt, took me home to my mother, told my mother what he did. My mother said, thank you. Now I'm going to spank you. See, that is community. That's not race. And see, we keep getting tricked into this race game. Now we got the Hispanics playing the race game. Now we got the people from other nations playing the race game. But nobody really understands American racism. Because American racism is different from any other type of racism in the world. Because it's user-friendly. It's user-friendly. It's manipulated. It's controlled. It's everything that we say we don't stand for that we tolerate.
Well, it brings us down to, we talked about, we cannot ignore the problem because to ignore the problem is to expose the country to physical, moral, and spiritual danger, right?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing now. When you were one of the heads of the NAACP,
okay,
I remember as a young man, as a young manager at Great Lakes, to where you and others had instituted programs to have the discussion about race and about work relationships, and race on the job. And we would have discussions on how we agree, how we disagree. But we always agreed to be civil.
Okay.
Then somebody came up with the bright idea that we don't have to talk about this no more. Now we gonna solve a problem that's been over 400, 500 years. We're gonna solve a problem less than 10 years. Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. And see, what's happening is now we need to begin to have those civil conversations again and stop ignoring that we feel this way. Because just like there's white racism, there's black racism. I remember as a boy, as a young man, where a lot of people had a problem with dark-skinned people. It's the light skins against the dark skins. So that tells me that this is a sickness. You know what I'm saying? It's not a culture, it's a sickness.
We had discussion, we included the naval base. There was a white female that was and those that worked at VA Hospital remember her. That was the hospital director. She's the only female hospital director that we know of. And we also had black Captain Julia Bonds. Some of you may remember her. She was the director of nursing on the base. So we brought the Navy in the community and for all of the affairs that we had, all of our banquets and forums that you mentioned and so forth, you know, because this is, and I'm wondering why is it's now ignored by our leaders, our representatives, and our religious leaders. Why it's not emphasized among them?
Fear.
Fear of what?
Fear of facing their own prejudice. It's fear of facing their own prejudice. And see, you know, when you are confronted, you know, I've been sharing with some friends of mine. I was saying, you know, I know you my best friend. And they were saying, oh, yeah. I said, you know why I know you my best friend? And why you're my friend? Because we don't always agree.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? If I got a friend that always agree with me, they're not a friend.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? Because a friend should not only be somebody that you can disagree with, a friend should be somebody that's an ally. Somebody that you can depend on. Somebody that you can turn to. You know, the Bible talks about wisdom and the counsel of many, you know, but it talks about the counsel of the godly.
Okay.
You know, talking to godly people, calling men that are upright, men like yourself, you know. I could come to you and I could ask you, Mr. Brooks, about a certain subject, certain thing, and you would be open, honest, and blunt with me. That's not right.
Okay.
And see, we have to get to the point where we're willing to accept correction again from each other. See, because you've been around a long time. I know that you gave a lot of people suggestions, advice, and they just blew you off. And then here comes this white guy that say the same thing you said, maybe in a little different way, but it's the same exact thing you said. And they'll say, oh, you're right. And you sitting there looking like, I just told you that's what it was.
You know, we talk about racism, but who really benefits from racism?
The wicked and the greedy. The wicked and the greedy. That's who benefit from it.
Because we all are from the same dust, right?
Same.
I haven't never seen any white dust. You know, dust is the dust of the earth.
I can't recall the European guy who came up with this race thing in the first place, because like you and I was talking, and I told you, I said I was surprised to find out that Rome had 2 black Caesars. That blew me away when I found it out. I thought all the Romans were white.
Okay.
But Rome had 2 black Caesars, so color was not an issue then. It wasn't about what color you was, it was about what nation you were from. See what I'm saying? Everybody's talking about make America great.
Okay.
America's never going to be great until America justifies not justifies, until America rectifies what they've done to the black man.
Okay.
America's never going to be great until they own up to it. And black America is never going to be great until black America face up, you hurt me, and we're going to talk about it.
For those that are watching this program now, I want them to go to their computer and enter King James, the original King James, and they'll find out that he was a black man.
Yeah.
Now I wonder.
It was two.
Okay.
It was two black men, and one of them was a mulatto. We recognize the mulatto.
Okay.
That's the one they identify with is being King James. But it was two prior to him.
Okay.
They were black men. The queen, right now the present queen of England is the cousin. She's not the real queen. Everybody over in London, they know where the real queen lives, right around the corner from the palace. She's a sister.
Okay. Okay.
So there's a lot of historical history that we weren't allowed to read and see. One of the biggest issues that we have with black America is we always waiting on somebody to tell us.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? What's right, what's wrong, who we are. We're the only group of people in this entire country that has, nationality has been changed so many times that I'd imagine if the slaves would rise, they would say, we Negroes.
Okay.
And we be talking about, because it blew me away. Was telling my wife, you know, my wife is Caucasian, she's white.
Okay.
And I was telling my wife, I said, wow, it seems like every 10 years we something else. now they saying we black Americans. First we was Afro Americans, now we black Americans.
Okay.
You know, my God, what next? Right. You know, it's confusing. And I know one of the problems is with them doing reparations is because how do you economically figure that out? That's why I say that's the decision. Yeah. That's the decision for the United Nations to make. That's the case that needs to be presented to the United Nations. Because for us to go to white America and tell white America, pay us reparations, is like going to a rapist and saying you wanted it. Mm-hmm. That's why I did it. Mm-hmm. Never gonna pay you for what you wanted.
What the other Japanese, when they given reparations?
I was surprised. Japanese get reparations. Mexico gets reparations. Mexico gets reparations now.
Okay.
Now, Philippines get reparations. The Jews get reparations. The Irish get reparations. Mm-hmm. Everybody get a check from America. Everybody. And see, they argue about making reparations for us, but President Obama signed a bill to give reparations to the Holocaust victims.
Oh. Okay.
And I used to wonder, why are we paying them? Because Germany did that. Then I found out why. The reason why is because America was in partnership with Germany to take the Jews' steel. Because Jews were the major manufacturers of steel.
Okay.
During World War II. Mm-hmm. So we benefited from that because while Germany was doing all this here crazy stuff to the Jews, we were still getting steel. Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying?
Amazing.
And I was reading a book in Hitler's memo, a book by Hitler. Hitler was talking to the president at that time. I don't remember who it was right offhand, but he's talking to the president at that time because the president said, hey, tone it down, you know, you're causing national attention. Mm-hmm. And they said that Hitler replied to him, said, everything I'm doing, I learned from y'all.
Okay. So it's really, racism is really a political game too, you know.
It's a political thing. It's an economic thing.
Okay.
It's an economic thing.
When you mention economic now, everything in this country was invented by slaves or black people. Yeah, even the White House What that Morrison was it? What's his?
One historian said
built
only,
by
the only thing the Europeans created or invented was laws and patent.
Okay.
Ownership of everything that you make, they patented.
So, okay.
Made it their own.
It's made their own.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know, it's just like this here show. You could do this show, and this show could be a success. And one of them could come in, and one of them go down there to their courthouse and sign some paper and say, "This is my show."
Get a patent on it.
Get a patent on it.
Yeah, because if to break it down real simple, if you work for, say, like Abbott, Advie, and you invent something, well, that is, you work for that company, and the company gets the patent for it, the credit for it. You don't benefit.
Oh, automatically. I remember when I used to work for McDonald Corporation, me and a friend of mine that worked there, they allowed us to be creative. And we came up with the idea of what they called that ice cream drink, the McFlurry, with them candy toppings. Me and a friend of mine, a guy by the name of Sean, first name Sean Sawyer, we came up with that idea and we presented it to them. And when we left, that stayed, we left. Because they paid us. That we came up with the idea, we instituted it, we marketed it, we put it out there, but it belonged to them.
Okay, right.
See what I'm saying?
Right.
Because they supplied the initial investment for the materials, the machines, and all that. All we had was an idea. But the foolish part is we didn't patent it. We didn't put our idea on paper and present it to them. We just, being kids, excited about doing something new.
Well, Prophet Snowden, what should we do now? Should I keep doing the same thing I'm doing now? Or should you recommend I keep going?
The definition of madness is repeating the same thing and getting the same result.
Okay.
We've been doing this how long now?
Oh my goodness, I've been in this area since 57.
Yeah, 57. And they say we've been in slavery over 400-something years.
Yeah, 16,
and
19.
And we keep repeating the same thing. We keep repeating the same thing. We keep voting for the same people.
Okay.
We keep following the same people. To be, that's madness. It's time to try something different. You know? Even so forth is voting. Why we got to be Democrats?
Okay.
Why we got to be Republicans? How come we can't be like every other nationality? They become a voting bloc.
Okay.
And they vote for the candidate that benefits the needs of their constituents. And we have to get to the point where we start building again, start dreaming again. Start having vision. The Bible says without a vision, the people perish.
We mentioned before that we sleepwalking back into slavery.
Yeah.
And when are we going to wake up?
Hopefully by bringing attention to this on this broadcast, that some people will begin to wake up and pay attention and start being more concerned about their neighbor, the person next door.
Okay.
We used to take care of family.
Yeah.
Then we got tricked into this abortion thing. Now the church won't talk about abortion, and I understand why. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. And I want to talk to the camera. God is forgiving you for your past behavior. Because a lot of us don't want to deal with this because at one time we were in that behavior. And we don't want to expose it because we were in that behavior. We got a lot of people that are in our churches that are got family members that are struggling with homosexuality, got family members that have had abortions. And we love them, but we got to address the behavior. We can't keep allowing our children to keep falling down that path.
Well, we win elections based on that. We know biblically it's wrong, but to win an election, then we support it.
But that's not who we say we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not who we say we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had how many kids, Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, 3.
3.
And they all are college graduates
Yeah,
and doing their profession, you know.
Yeah. And to result of that, I got 5. And all of them have degrees. All of them. Because of what I seen you do with your children.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Okay.
Now, to my point, we have to start being concerned about one another again. Those that are in ministry, those that are in politics, they got to get some help for this rejection, this offense, and this pride that they're dealing with, not letting people know, you hurt me. You got a lot of wounded pastors walking around.
Okay.
They wounded because they've done for people, they gave for people, and people turned their back on them, left them, went another way, started their own thing. They got to let them people go.
Mm-hmm.
They got to let them go. Because Christ, when he sent them out 2 by 2, he warned them of all these things was going to happen. Because he said, they did it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells us in Scripture, he said, woe unto them that offense comes to.
Mm-hmm.
And how, you see, we read that and think that it's talking about the individual that offended you. But no, it's talking about how you perceive it, how you deal with that offense. Mm-hmm. He's talking to the receiver of the offense, how he deals with it, how he accepts that offense. Mm-hmm. And he told us how to do it. He told us, he said, when you walk out of their house and you walk out of that town, shake the dust off your feet. We got to begin to start shaking some of this stuff off because this stuff is affecting our children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why we have in generation after generation of our girls having kids out of wedlocks, our girls having families, but everybody got a different daddy. I talked to a lady the other day, her husband then left her for a man that got 6 kids, for a woman that got 6 kids, that 6 baby daddy.
Oh my goodness.
You know, that's foolishness.
Yeah, yeah.
That's foolishness. We got to restore family values. And one of the ways of doing that is we have to start listening, and we have to start helping, and we got to start forgiving each other for these little petty offenses, because that's what they are. They're petty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to wait till you get on your deathbed and say, I wasted all that time mad at you about something that stupid. Don't mean. I told my daughter, I said, one thing about right, everybody got their truth and everybody's going to be right. But mm-hmm. in the end, everybody going to know who is right. Because I read my Bible. My Bible says, in a twinkling of an eye, God is going to show us our whole life. It ain't going to take 24 hours. It ain't going to take 8. It ain't going to take 12. It ain't going to take a month. Mm-hmm. It ain't going to take a year. It say God going to show us our life just like that. It's going to flash before us. And we going to say, I did that. Because some of the stuff we done forgot about because it wasn't important to us. But every moment of life should be important to us.
Do we actually know why we are here on this earth? Every one of us have a purpose-driven life, right? We're not here by accident. Mm-hmm. But do we actually, do people actually realize why they're here? Maybe if they would stop and think about it, then they will it'll change. This, like you say, what should we do now? We'll know what we should be doing. You are a prophet now, you know, and we know in Ephesians chapter 4, I guess, he gave some prophets and some apostles, some teachers, pastors, and some evangelists, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so that means he gave something for everyone to do.
Mm-hmm.
But how can we reach? Now, a lot of people talk about Jehovah's Witnesses going knocking on doors, but they actually spreading the gospel. I'm not sure they spreading the true gospel, you know, just to meet their denominational needs, but they're out there. But are the other groups out there spreading the word? And the truth now.
I think one of the things that all of us need to do is go back and read Revelations when they talk about the 7 churches.
Okay.
You know, because in Revelation it talks about 7 churches. God
Right.
talks about his 7 churches,
Right.
not his 7 denominations,
Okay.
his 7 churches. And the reason I said that, because I had an undeveloped thought, and the Holy Spirit was dealing with me, and he said, after I read it, he dealt with me, and he said, "Now, what church are you? Not what church you going to.
Oh.
Which one of these churches are you?" See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And until we find out which one of them 7 churches we are, we're not going to be effective. We're not going to be effective in the church that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? Because you're talking about the 5-fold when you talk about the apostle, prophet, evangelist, teacher, preacher.
Mm-hmm.
But he showed me something. He said, my apostles are trying to be the evangelists. My prophets are trying to be the psalmists. My teachers are trying to be the preacher. My preachers are trying to be the teachers. And my evangelist is trying to be the apostle.
Okay.
That's confusion.
Okay.
And that's what we have right now. The body is not functioning in the place where God placed them, not the place they want to go, or not the place they want to be. How can you go to the nations when you won't go to the project?
Mm-hmm.
No?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You won't go to the project, but you say you called to the nations. You say you called to the nations, but you won't go to the slums of Chicago.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? But you want to go to Africa.
Okay.
See what I'm talking about? It's confusion. It's an old song the Temptations used to do back in, you know, your heydays. And they used to say, what was it? An art or an act of confusion. Mm-hmm. Eye for eye, tooth for a tooth. Vote for me and I'll set you free.
Okay.
You know, that's what we're dealing with now. It's confusion. It's confusion. And we need to start having dialogue and conversations about how, not how we feeling, how we perceive things. Mm-hmm. Because your feelings will get you in trouble. Mm-hmm. Get you in trouble. And see, it used to be something that you old guys used to tell us, my guys my age, when we were young, y'all, I'm going to paraphrase it, but y'all used to, this is what you meant. A wise man holds his tongue, but a fool blots out his every thought. That's what we have now. We got a whole bunch of people blotting out stuff, and they're just in thought. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It ain't no wisdom in what they're saying. It's just a thought, and you're just blotting it out, causing confusion.
Why don't we place Jesus at the head of our lives? Jesus is a mediator. We have to go through him to get to God. Now, we put our faith in, say, Lake County, for example. We have black mayors in 3 cities: North Chicago, Waukegan, Zion. Black mayor in Chicago, you know, and remember Gary had a black mayor, but the industry left, you know, and so we putting our faith in black men, but this is 2019, and we still haven't learned yet.
When you initially started the NAACP, the people that were a part of that were people that we selected
Okay.
and we voted for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Now what we have happening now, our leaders, people who look like us,
Mm-hmm.
they're not elected, they're not selected by us. They're selected by others for us.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And what's happening is we're putting the wrong people in the right place at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We don't do no research on people. We just take them at face value.
Oh, because of family,
You know.
family, you know.
Family,
This type of
family, you know, and we know about that in North Chicago.
Right.
You know, family, and everybody know they ain't qualified, but they family. You know what
Okay.
I'm saying?
Okay.
And we got to stop that. We got to stop that. We've been miseducated because of slavery. I'm going to the Bible Museum in September
Okay.
in Washington, D.C. I want to see the Negro Bible, because, you know, they got the Negro Bible there, that Bible we've been reading.
Okay.
Because we don't know that the real King James Bible is over there in the museum over there in London.
Okay.
That's the original King James, the original translation.
Okay.
And I don't know how many translations there is here in America, but
Right.
it's so much that's been detracted. Like we use to make the statement to train up a child in the way to go. That's a slave. We don't train, we raise.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You train cattle.
Okay.
You know, you don't train your children, you raise them. Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I learned that from working in management and working in the school system, when I would see different cultures and stuff, and they would come in and their kids would get caught doing something inappropriate or wrong, and the first thing the parents would reply was, "Oh, he wasn't raised like that." You get it?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say he wasn't trained that way.
Okay.
They say he wasn't raised like that.
Okay.
But then you'd have black people that come in and they would say, he wasn't trained that way. Trained?
Yeah, right.
This is your child. You raise him.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a few minutes to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Prophet James Snowden, retired Zion school system, and he's a religious leader. And we've been talking about the vision of race unity, America's most challenging issue, and trying to alert people not to ignore the problem, trying to expose the country to physical, moral, and spiritual danger. This is what's going to happen if we ignore the problem. Of course, we know that dust art thou and dust returneth, and we know that we were naked when we were born, and we leave here, we're going to be naked. And so we're trying to live the way we want to live to get to heaven. Now, Prophet Snowden, we talk about heaven and hell, but we don't have pastors preaching about hell. So they preach about heaven, but not hell too much. I wonder why they don't lean on hell, because each one is eternal. We're only here for a short period of time, and we're going to leave. Just sure as we're sitting here, we're going to leave. And there's no second chance. You know, in the jails we got second chance. There'll be no second chance then. It's forever, eternal. And this is 70 or even 120 years, a short time. Right? Very short time. But we talk about eternal home. And why is that not emphasized more?
I think it's not emphasized more because of there have been so many people that in the past that have sent good people to hell by teaching a false gospel, by teaching a false doctrine. And what we have to do is, with God, there's right and there's wrong. There's
Okay.
no in between.
Okay.
And we got to stop justifying and enabling bad behavior and address bad behavior right when it begins.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you were a kid and you touched the stove,
Okay.
and they tell you don't touch that stove, it's gonna burn.
Right.
But you had to touch it to find out, right? We have to stop letting people touch things and get burnt. We gotta demonstrate, show them our scars.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Say, see, I touched this what happened. See what I'm saying? Because some people won't believe it till they see it.
Right.
And one thing, I know we're about to go off, one thing I wanted to say. The Bible says that old men are given for wisdom and instruction, and young men are given for war and battle and to build. If our young people aren't doing anything, it's because we're not giving them no wisdom and giving them no instruction.
Well, I want to thank you for the wisdom that you have been promulgated to our
Yeah.
listening audience. And we have a wide listening audience. Comcast
Yeah.
is about 100,000 people. Lake County is about 850,000 people.
Yeah.
But we're online, so the whole world, if you have not been known all over the world, you will be after this show.
Yeah.
Great minds discuss ideas.
Yeah.
Average minds discuss people. Small minds discuss things. And you have a great mind with great ideas, great vision today.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.